We're in Atlanta tonight, a bustling city that helped turn Georgia blue, but now it's as tight a race as it gets. What happens here could help decide the U.S. election, and there's just 2 weeks to go. Voters already out in record numbers.
Kamala?
Why?
She shares my views.
The final push in the final stretch. And in Canada, Halifax police confirm a disturbing discovery.
So it's pretty distressing.
A young Walmart employee found dead in a large industrial bakery oven. And the desperate search for a missing man after BC's weekend storm.
I just want to find my dad.
Why his family fears he was swept away.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you for joining us. We're here in one of the most important battleground states in the U.S. election, just 14 days out from polls closing across the country. And the margins in this race are still razor thin, so neither candidate obviously is letting up. Kamala Harris trying to reach voters through network interviews. Donald Trump holding a rally in North Carolina, one of 7 key swing states. Now, each one of those states still up for grabs, and each one critical to forming a path to the White House, including this one, Georgia, where aggregate polls show Trump is up by just 1.7%. Paul Hunter spoke with some voters here among the record number who've already cast their ballot in this incredibly tight race.
Just 2 weeks to go, and in downtown Atlanta, nestled in the key battleground state of Georgia, voters know who they want.
Kamala?
Why?
She shares my views, and I feel like she's honest and has integrity.
What do you like about her?
Everything.
And as you might guess, they know who they do not
really.
want.
Donald Trump.
Why?
Because the thing that he said make people act crazy.
It's an infection that needs to go away.
Everything that Trump has done, the guy's a criminal. You know, he wants to be a dictator on his first day.
But keep in mind, plenty of Americans see Trump differently. Statewide polls now put Trump slightly ahead in Georgia, though like the country broadly, the whole thing is effectively a toss-up. In Wisconsin, another state in play, early in-person voting is now underway as well. Lost on no one is that the time to get this done is now short. In Miami, pushing for Latino votes while touting the economy during his time in office, Trump slammed Harris.
She's slow, low IQ. We don't need another low IQ person. We had one for 4 years. We don't need another one.
As if in response to that, in Wisconsin, rallying for Harris, Barack Obama.
Wisconsin, we do not need to see what an older, loonier Donald Trump looks like with no guardrails. America's ready to turn the page.
En exclusiva.
Harris, meanwhile, pushed her economic plan on the Spanish-language network Telemundo.
2 weeks away from
Later, sitting down with NBC News, she talked about the potential threat to America posed by Trump.
This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election. This is a serious matter. The American people are, at this point, 2 weeks out, being presented with a very, very serious decision about what will be the future of our country.
And Adrian, tomorrow we'll be going to a Trump rally, meet with Trump supporters, where I suspect we'll get a very different assessment of the former president.
In any way, were you surprised by the extent to which the Harris supporters talked about Trump today?
Yeah, no, not really. It's as if they can't really believe this is happening again. I mean, that was a fair representation of what we heard today. I mean, and it kind of reminded me of that thing you and I have talked about so often over the past few years now, which is the political divide in this country. It is real, it is deep. You're on this side or that side. You're for this person or that person. There's no conversation, no middle ground, Adrian. It is visceral.
And I know you're heading to a Trump rally tomorrow. You're going to dive deeper into the Trump effect. I'll be looking at the ever-changing rules in the state, because there are a lot of them. So we'll see you here tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, indeed.
You bet. Rudy Giuliani has been ordered to surrender some of his most valuable assets to two Georgia election workers, among them his Manhattan penthouse, his Mercedes, and several luxury watches, all adding up to just a fraction of the $150 million US he owes those women. Giuliani defamed the workers in 2020 when he falsely accused them of election fraud. Now, while the outcome of this election is far from certain, one thing is very clear. The campaign has exposed deep divisions in this country. I spoke about polarization with someone who studies it both here and elsewhere, including Canada.
People may be willing to sacrifice democratic principles to keep their side in power.
My conversation with Jennifer McCoy is coming up later in the show. Now, back in Canada, the troubling death of a young woman in a Halifax Walmart is prompting a lot of questions tonight. Police say they're investigating after the employee's body was found inside a bakery oven. Kayla Hounsell with their appeal to the public tonight.
A growing memorial for a young woman found dead inside this Halifax Walmart where she worked. She was just 19. Shockingly found inside an industrial oven in the bakery, large enough for a person to step inside.
This investigation is a very complex investigation.
Police say they were called here around 9:30 Saturday night to investigate a sudden death. They have not said whether it's believed to be criminal. Sources tell CBC News the oven does not lock. Police say the woman had been working that day. They have not released her name.
We're working with occupational health and safety, Nova Scotia medical examiners, determine the cause and manner of death.
A Walmart spokesperson says, "We are heartbroken and our deepest thoughts are with our associate and their family. We extend our sincerest condolences to those who were closest to them." The store has been closed ever since, and grief counseling made available for employees. Members of the maritime Sikh community say the woman was originally from India and came to Canada 2 or 3 years ago.
It's pretty distressing that young people come here with all kind of hopes and dreams, and they are working hard, and then this is what happens.
In Halifax, rumors have been spreading online, prompting police to urge the public not to speculate, warning the investigation could take a significant amount of time.
We want to make sure that they consider the family and the co-workers.
The Nova Scotia Department of Labour says it has issued a stop work order for the bakery and one piece of equipment at this Walmart. Police have cleared the scene here but say their investigation is ongoing. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
A BC man is desperately searching for his missing father tonight. He's believed to have been swept away Sunday by a surging river in the Vancouver suburbs after 2 days of torrential rain. Susanna Da Silva shows us the difficult and emotional search.
Ethan Belding can't bring himself to stop searching.
We've just been walking up and down the river, calling for him, trying to hear if he'll call back or whistle.
Desperate to find his father, 59-year-old Robert Belding, missing in a Vancouver suburb after the weekend storm that dropped record-breaking rain. He was helping a friend whose home was flooding.
My uncle and his friend, I believe, went inside to address the pumps, and my dad told them that he would watch the dog. And when they came out about a couple minutes later, him and the dog were missing.
Search crews believe he may have been trying to save the dog from the surging water. The dog was later found alive after making it to shore, but no sign of Robert.
Today, we had a boat in the water to do the lower portion of the river. We did approximately 43 kilometers of shoreline search.
The atmospheric river that slammed the west coast has already claimed 3 lives. In the same area, a teacher was killed when her home was washed away. And on Vancouver Island, 2 people died when their cars were swept into a river.
Both gentlemen, highly respected, and a huge loss to our community.
My heart goes out to the families of those who are missing, who have died.
Premier David Eby says the government has been evaluating its response.
We will be reviewing and ensuring that any lessons that can be taken here about future rainfall or flooding-related incidents are taken into account in terms of the specific deaths we saw here.
But for Ethan Belding, there is one focus.
I just want to find my dad. Yeah, that's all.
Searchers say they need conditions to improve so they can get crews into the water to keep looking. Susana da Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
Just hours from now, the Prime Minister will meet with his Liberal caucus, and it's expected some members will tell Justin Trudeau it is time to go. But as Ashley Burke shows us, he has plenty of supporters, too.
The Prime Minister confident his leadership's not in danger, despite a group of his own MPs wanting him to step down.
I want to see something happen to give us a chance to win the next election.
Liberal MP Ken MacDonald told Radio-Canada he signed a letter calling on Justin Trudeau to go, and personally knows up to 18 other Liberal MPs who signed it too.
Didn't say anything about a threat, it was just that we'd like to see a change in leadership.
It's the largest internal revolt Trudeau's faced during his 9 years in power.
The vast majority of MPs, in my view, strongly support the Prime Minister.
Cabinet met for longer than usual and presented a united front.
Any minute spent on this garbage is a minute that's not spent on Pierre Poilievre and what he wants to do to this country, and I think that's very dangerous.
This all unfolding on the eve of what could be a showdown with caucus.
It's a moment where caucus is going to express itself, the Prime Minister is going to listen, and we're going to get through this as a team.
MPs will have a chance to share concerns.
What it will be is, I hope, a good airing of the issues as we see it.
At caucus, we have in-camera chats. If we have problems, we discuss it.
The opposition using it all to fuel its attacks against the government.
It is being eaten from inside and being attacked from outside, and nothing is happening. The whole story now is, what will Justin Trudeau, superstar, do?
The reality is he can't administer the government because he's too busy fighting for his job.
Sources working to oust the Prime Minister say the plan is to ask Trudeau to step down at that caucus meeting, telling him how many members want him gone, but not naming names. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, MPs are among those marking the 10th anniversary of a deadly attack on Parliament Hill, and another one just days before in Quebec. Both attacks killed members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Let us take the time to mourn Corporal Nathan Cirillo and Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent, and remember who they were. Proud, devoted, selfless, and brave patriots.
A moment of silence was held in the House of Commons. Corporal Nathan Cirillo was shot and killed while guarding the National War Memorial in 2014. The gunman then stormed and opened fire in Centre Block before he was killed. The attack came 2 days after Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent died in a separate attack in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu in Quebec. The U.S. Secretary of State is back in the Middle East tonight trying to secure an elusive ceasefire agreement in his 11th visit to Israel since the October 7th attacks. After touching down in Tel Aviv, Antony Blinken met with Benjamin Netanyahu, urging Israel's prime minister to revive ceasefire talks and take advantage of the death of Hamas's leader, though so far no evidence either side is budging. In Gaza today, reports over 40 people have been killed in Israeli raids, as many in the north are ordered to evacuate again. And on Israel's northern front, another series of strikes in southern Beirut. The targets near Lebanon's largest public hospital. Health officials say at least 18 people were killed, including 4 children. Israel's military accused Hezbollah of hiding hundreds of millions of dollars underneath another nearby hospital before the offensive. Health officials in Lebanon say that's untrue and later opened the hospital's doors for a media tour. We have new details tonight about the 10 Canadians indicted by U.S. authorities in a transnational crime ring. The FBI alleges a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder is at the top of the network. Thomas Digg now with more on his alleged accomplices and how they were caught.
In a dramatic operation in broad daylight, Mexican troops moved in on a restaurant in Guadalajara, arresting a Canadian facing murder charges for violent killings in Ontario. Andrew Clark is named in a U.S. indictment as the right-hand man of former Olympian-turned-fugitive Ryan Wedding.
Un autre Canadien maintenant, Ryan Wedding.
Wedding is wanted by the FBI accused of running a transnational drug trafficking network. And the RCMP now confirms they've been hunting Wedding for a decade.
Is it fair to say that he's been on the run since at least 2015?
Approximately that, yeah.
Whoa. Last week, the FBI raided this South Florida mansion once owned by rap star DJ Khaled. Indicted now, the home's recent owner, Canadian Naim Jorge Bonilla, who authorities say orchestrated a 20-kilogram shipment of methamphetamine to Montreal. All of it meant to repay a drug debt to Wedding, who allegedly told Bonilla that he would kill his mother if he didn't pay up.
I can't comment on where we may think he is. He was in Mexico.
Among the 16 defendants indicted, CBC News has learned 4 were tracked down last week in Toronto. And court records show 2 other Ontario men were arrested at this border crossing after officers spotted a secret compartment in their truck filled with what appeared to be cocaine.
Things that would be said to a defendant is, it would be better for you to cooperate and give up information in exchange for a reduced sentence.
That former FBI official says investigators will be pressing those arrested for any information on Wedding's whereabouts. 4 co-accused are set to appear in court here on Wednesday as the U.S. seeks their extradition. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
The former head of clothing giant Abercrombie Fitch is facing criminal charges tonight, accused of running an international sex trafficking ring.
Mr. Jeffries, any comment about the charges?
Michael Jeffries, seen here in the white shorts, was released today on a $10 million bond. Jeffries, along with 2 other men, including his longtime partner, are accused of coercing aspiring male models into performing sex acts. Similar accusations were filed against him in a civil suit, which the 80-year-old has denied. A group of Quebec teachers are under suspension tonight, accused of creating a toxic environment for students.
This is not a small accusation.
Why it's stirring up a debate about religion in schools in the province. Next. Plus, here in battleground Georgia, it's not hard to feel the polarization in U.S. politics.
People may be willing to sacrifice democratic principles to keep their side in power.
How did things get to this point, and could it happen in Canada? And later, a 5-year-old girl separated from a dear companion.
She's an only child, so her stuffed animals are basically her siblings.
The Georgia Target employees who went above and beyond to help. We're back at 2. Eleven Montreal teachers from one school are out of the classroom tonight, suspended after they were accused of creating a toxic learning environment. Sarah Levitt now with the allegations and how they've turned political.
Students at Montreal's Bedford Elementary are facing a big change. More than half of their teachers have been replaced. 11 are suspended, accused of exacting physical and psychological harm on staff and students. In a 90-page government report, investigators allege a group of teachers they call a clan created a toxic atmosphere in the school since 2016. The report cites other teachers who say they saw some of them pulling students by the ear and in one case pushing a student to the ground. It also alleges some teachers called students with learning disabilities lost causes.
Le professeur n'était pas content, lui criait dessus.
Celia Ngulu says her son was often yelled at by one of the suspended teachers, told he had to catch up on his own after being sick. Now, the situation at Bedford has become political.
There is an issue with the respect of the law on secularism.
Quebec's law, known as Bill 21, requires government employees, including teachers, to apply religious neutrality in all aspects of their job. The report notes the majority of the teachers now suspended originally come from North African countries like Morocco and Algeria. It doesn't mention their religion, but says the school is in an area with a large Muslim population.
We have a responsibility to look into what could be done to strengthen this law in relations to Bedford.
J'ai été choqué.
I was shocked, Premier François Legault says.
Des concepts religieux islamistes.
He says the teachers tried to bring religious Islamist concepts into the school. Investigators did find cases of teachers praying in school, but in most cases not around students.
This is not a mere small accusation.
Members of Montreal's Muslim community say they feel targeted.
What does that have to do with their faith? It has to do with the personality of the teachers and with their teaching methods.
The 11 teachers have also had their permits suspended, meaning they can't work anywhere else. 2 provincial employees have been sent to the school to monitor it and come up with a plan to fix the issues. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Allegations tonight by 2 temporary foreign workers who say they left their Canadian Tire jobs over pay and poor work conditions.
I was crying going to work.
The CBC News investigation and the calls for changes to how the system works. Plus, in Nevada, a race to win over Latino voters.
Nevada was not winnable. Trump was going to win. Kamala erased that advantage.
Richard Madden takes us door to door in another crucial battleground state. And breaking down the Electoral College.
It doesn't matter if one candidate wins by 1% or by 100%.
Andrew Chang makes sense of America's controversial and sometimes confusing system. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Longtime Quebec television executive Marie-Philippe Bouchard is CBC Radio Canada's next president and CEO. That appointment made official today by Heritage Canada. Bouchard is the first Francophone woman to take on the role. She begins a 5-year term in January. Well, 2 former Canadian Tire workers are speaking out tonight about the challenges they say they faced as temporary foreign workers. The Ontario store hired at least 13 employees under the federal program last year. But as Shayna Luck shows us, the 2 say they were underpaid and threatened with dismissal.
Ruel Pailan spends his days applying for jobs, dreaming of gaining permanent residency and bringing his family to Canada.
I'm just always thinking for my family, not for myself actually.
Pailan's former employer was Azil Natarajan. His store on the west side of Toronto was approved to hire 34 foreign workers on closed permits, but many left before their work permits expired. Pailan showed CBC his schedule and pay stubs. His contract said he'd get $20 an hour, at least 35 hours a week, but he wasn't scheduled for the hours he expected. His hourly wage was eventually cut by more than $3, shrinking the money he sent his children in the Philippines for education.
I was crying going to work.
Jean Crescencio also says he was underpaid and he felt the workplace was unhealthy. He says he came to a tipping point last December.
He was shouting at me that if I don't want to work with him and if I act like that, he will terminate me.
Both men say they quit, a decision made more difficult, Crescencio says, because of their closed work permits. These permits tie employees to a single employer. Quitting could mean the end of an employee's Canadian immigration dream.
Work permit it's like a cage.
Azil Natarajan told CBC he vehemently denies all the allegations against him. Canadian Tire Corporation said in an email it's deeply concerned and investigating the details and validity of the allegations. It also said all stores make independent hiring decisions. The province of Ontario has an open investigation into the store. The federal government wouldn't confirm whether it does too. More workers are applying to the federal government to try to break their closed permits. In the last 5 years, the number of open permits granted because of abuse has gone up dramatically.
Any person in Canada, regardless of who they employ, need to treat people with dignity and respect according to law.
Jean Crescencio was able to transition to an open work permit, something he wishes all temporary workers could experience. Ruel Pailan wishes the same. He and 8 others who quit were not approved for open permits. Any employer willing to have him will face more paperwork because of his closed work permit. The federal government concluded he didn't provide the necessary evidence of abuse to open his permit. But he says he still loves Canada.
But as of now, my status, I'm still struggling.
Shayna Luck, CBC News, Wolfville, Nova Scotia.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. 2 weeks today, America votes. In each of the 50 states, citizens will decide between Harris and Trump. We'll break down the country's winner-takes-all Electoral College, but first. In a national contest that will come down to the results in 7 swing states, every vote in every one matters. So we'll take you to Nevada.
Democrats never done anything for us. Never. They just promise and promise.
There it is again, something we're seeing time and again in this U.S. campaign. Democrats and Republicans feel further apart than ever, but how did they get here? In this era of polarization, is it any different from the ones we're used to seeing? Can Canada avoid the same level of division? I sat down with an expert in political polarization here in Atlanta to talk about it. Jennifer McCoy at Georgia State.
I want to talk to you about polarization because I'm going to presume there's always been a degree of it. Somebody wins, somebody loses. But you're saying it has crossed a point. It has made a significant change.
The change is that we're at the point where there's high levels of perceptions of threat from the other side. There are polls by Pew Research Center asking Democrats and Republicans, do you think before 2020 election that Biden coming to office will present, and his policies will present a threat to the nation or your way of life? And almost 90% of respondents said yes, it will present a threat. And that means people may be willing to sacrifice democratic principles to keep their side in power.
Is this something unique to the United States? Or do you see this elsewhere?
It's been growing around the world, but it's particularly strong in countries, has been strong in Turkey, in Hungary, in India, in Brazil, countries that were going down a backsliding path, eroding their democracies at the same time.
Why those countries? What is it about them?
Well, part of it is leadership comes into power and is able to appeal with emotional appeals to some kind of grievance that the population has. Some of the countries I mentioned, Brazil, India, those are also large, multiracial, multicultural democracies, which do experience a lot of challenges with changes in demographics that's also creating a lot of anxiety and a lot of backlash.
Our interest in Canada is obviously clear. You didn't mention it, but does that mean that problem is not existing there?
I would say for Canada, this is the moment to be aware, to be alert, to look for early warning signs.
Which are?
Which are when you have candidates that are using this kind of demonizing language of we and they, rather than identifying people. And when they stop interacting with others. There are survey questions asking about, are you willing to have your daughter marry somebody from the other camp? Or are you willing to date somebody from a different political view? When those questions start to be answered with a no, that is a very big warning sign that this level of polarization, that is the danger zone.
So what do you do, though?
Now is the time in Canada to be focusing on bringing people together to make sure that they maintain contact, see the shared interest and values in different areas of people's lives. At the level of the political system, moving to proportional representation, like much of Europe, much of Latin America, many other democracies, can lessen that winner-take-all and, win-lose or zero-sum perception about elections.
I'm wondering what the incentive is to change, though, because if you like the way it's going, because you're winning, why on earth would you agree to change?
It's educating, informing, building a movement among voters to press for change.
So for the people who will text me tonight and say, what again is proportional representation? How would that work in Canada?
It means that the different political parties get seats in the parliament proportionate to their actual share of votes. New Zealand and Australia did that. They made those changes. They educated their population, and they seem relatively happy with that. And we're seeing it done in local levels in the United States already. In cities, in some states already have it. Maine and Alaska already changed their systems. And there's movements in other states to change.
So if you don't like the polarization, do something about it. Stop whinging about it.
Exactly.
Thank you for the early warning system.
Okay.
Cheers.
So let's see how some of that polarization is playing out in one of the crucial swing states. Richard Madden profiles Nevada, a small state whose decision looms large.
What happens in Vegas could play a big role this election. Battleground Nevada is one of the swingiest swing states to watch. While the state may be rebounding from the pandemic shutdowns, high unemployment, rising costs, and immigration has made Nevada a key bellwether. Democrats have won the last 4 election cycles here, but polls suggest this round is too close to call. Both presidential campaigns are boosting their ground game and spending millions targeting a critical voting bloc that could sway the outcome.
Trump bajó nuestros impuestos.
As your president, I'll work for you.
Now, both Democrats and Republicans are making an aggressive push to win the crucial Latino vote across the Southwest, but particularly here in Nevada, where Latinos make up roughly 1/3 of the state's population and growing.
Empiezan el 19, los votos para Kamala.
So a massive outreach is underway. Here in the Vegas suburbs, canvassers for Vice President Kamala Harris are identifying potential supporters.
Hi, how are you? Hi.
One door and 2 languages at a time.
I give information about the general election. Where are you going to go? I'm a Democrat.
They're canvassing on behalf of the state's powerful culinary union that's endorsed Harris.
Kamala, she's energized this race. Look, Nevada was not winnable. Trump was going to win. Kamala erased that advantage by jumping into the race.
The union represents roughly 60,000 workers in the state's large casino and hospitality industries, from cooks, cleaners, to cocktail servers. They're tailoring their message to Latino voters, warning Trump will damage the economy, weaken union protections, and demonize immigrants.
Our members are 60% Latino. They get the hypocrisy, this idea that Trump says, okay, he's going to close the border, he's going to do mass deportations and mass tariffs. That blows up this economy, this soft landing. And for us, this economy is number one. And our members and Latino voters, that's a persuading argument. And that's driving votes.
Oh, it is so wonderful to be back in Nevada. Thank you all.
Latinos have long been considered a reliable part of the Democratic voting base, but polls suggest that support is eroding as Republicans tap into economic anxieties that appear to be resonating with working-class Latino men.
Service workers in Nevada, they love Trump.
At this popular restaurant, politics may not be on the menu, but a local newspaper showing its owner, Javier Baracus, proudly endorsing Trump, is on full display at the front entrance.
Democrats never done anything for us. Never. They never do anything. They just promise and don't do anything.
His public support recently brought in the former president for a campaign stop.
So I need you to please make America great again.
He says Trump's hardline approach on immigration may repel some Latino voters, but it resonates with him.
Because I know he's not talking about me. I know he's talking about people that come and do bad things.
But he said he was going to do mass deportation.
Yeah, but...
You don't believe it?
No.
He's going to be kind and gentle?
I hope he deport the people that are doing bad in this country. But I know he's not going to go after people that working and, you know, I know he's smart, he's a businessman.
Nevada is where both candidates promise to eliminate paying tax on tips, which many voters here rely on. And it's also where Harris made her pitch directly to Latino voters on Spanish language network Univision.
Or do you have plans to support that subgroup of immigrants?
At this town hall special, where she took questions from undecided voters.
The first bill we offered within hours of taking the oath was a bill to fix the immigration system.
After the show, we spoke to some audience members whose reactions were mixed.
I really do like the way she articulated her answers.
But does she want your vote?
Honestly, I think she did. I think she won my vote. I'm looking forward to that election.
There's a couple of things I wish she was a little bit more articulate or just more descriptive of. There were some questions that were asked about immigration, particularly of a pathway to citizenship for folks that have been here for a really long time.
Today, I'm still undecided. I don't know which way to go.
And what is it about Kamala Harris that just isn't convincing you?
Some of the answers I've heard in other news stations, other broadcasts before. So there was that redundancy for me.
So Richard showed us why the race in Nevada is so tight, but there's one more wrinkle. Like almost every other state, the prize in Nevada is the Electoral College votes. Nevada has 6 of them, and in a nail biter, that could tip the balance of the race. So how does that work? Coming up, Andrew Chang breaks it all down, a primer on the math for the path to the presidency. Breaking down how the U.S. decides who wins the presidential election. It's not who gets the most votes. There are tens of millions of those. No, it is who gets the most Electoral College votes. And there are only 538 of those. So how does that work? Andrew Chang, host of About That, explains this uniquely American electoral process.
Okay, so the best way I can think of to explain how the Electoral College works is to explain it like scoring in tennis. When one player wins a rally, they get some points, right? And this can go back and forth. Often does. But let's say I'm at 40, you're at 30, and then I score one more time. I win the game, and we start again. Those 30 points you won, completely worthless. They're gone, like they never happened. All that matters is that I got the required number of points before you did. That's how the Electoral College works. Every state is like a game in tennis. It doesn't matter if one candidate wins by 1% or by 100%. Whoever wins the most votes by the end of the count in any given state wins the whole state. And what makes this slightly more complex than a simple tennis match is that each state is worth a different number of points. The most valuable state is California, worth a whopping 54 points. That's based on population. At the other end of the spectrum, you have 7 states, which includes Washington, D.C., worth only 3 points. Everything else is in between. The name of the game, first to 270 points, because there are 538 Electoral College points up for grabs. 270 is 50% plus 1. Now, there are hiccups because, of course, there are hiccups. Maine and Nebraska work a bit differently. Maine is worth 4 points, Nebraska is worth 5. Okay, but only 2 points apiece is a winner-take-all kind of thing, based on the statewide popular vote. The rest of the points are awarded district by district. So you can have one party winning some of those districts and the other party winning the rest. That's actually what happened in 2020 when Donald Trump was considered to have won the state of Nebraska, except he only won 4 of the possible 5 points because Joe Biden's candidate won Nebraska's 2nd district, which is worth 1 point. Now, we're going to stop calling them points because they're actually Electoral College votes, and I'll explain what I mean. So a little quirk of this whole system is that when you go to a voting booth and you're ticking off either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, you're not actually directly voting to elect that person as president. What you're actually voting for is a slate of electors. That's a group of people who agree to take your vote and then, in turn, cast the actual vote for you and everyone in your state who voted as you did, when it actually counts to elect the next president. So, for example, if I'm in Texas, which is worth 40 Electoral College votes, and I vote for Donald Trump, and he goes on to win that race, I'm actually just voting for a group of people, the electors, which the Republican Party has handpicked to represent my vote when they convene on the Tuesday after the 2nd Wednesday in December after Election Day. Yes, the timing is that arcane. But whatever, it's literally 40 people who all agree to vote for Trump when the Electoral College meets in each state this year on December 17th. And then Congress has to meet at the Capitol to count and certify those Electoral College votes, paving the way for the presidential inauguration. Now, on what date do they do this counting and certifying? January 6th. Yes, that January 6th. That's what all those representatives and senators were in the middle of doing on a date that at virtually all other times is quite boring and procedural. In 2024, it'll be considered a national special security event, like the Democratic or Republican national conventions. Now, this system can lead to all kinds of funny outcomes. For example, if you think back to 2016, can you guess which 3 states Donald Trump won the most votes in? Texas was number 1, Florida was number 2, but California was number 3. Not exactly what you think of as a Republican stronghold. It's the opposite. But while Donald Trump won almost 4.5 million votes in that state, Hillary Clinton won almost double that. So those 4.5 million votes, which is more votes than Donald Trump won in any other state besides the ones I just mentioned, they were all worth nothing in the end. In a winner-take-all system, it doesn't really matter that there are very Republican parts of California or very Democratic parts of Texas. And if you multiply that type of scenario out across the country, then you can end up with situations where a candidate wins the election with fewer total votes than his or her opponent. That's what happened in 2016, when Donald Trump won a quarter of all of his Electoral College votes from just 191,000 votes cast in the closest 4 states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida. He won them all by 1.2 percentage points or less, but he took all 75 Electoral College votes, while Hillary Clinton won none. But strictly speaking, more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Donald Trump by nearly 3 million votes. So look, the presidential election is the only US election that uses this system. They use the popular vote in all other congressional, state, and local races. And there's been plenty of talk of reforming the system over the years. But Adrian, until that happens, if it ever does, this is the system they've got.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Next, a stuffed animal gets lost across state lines.
Where's my doggy? And I'm like, Anna, the world will not end.
The effort to bring it back home in our moment. So that's 5-year-old Anna Groves with 2 of her prize stuffies. Keep an eye on the one on the left. That is Wavy. That is a dog that never leaves her sight. That is until she lost Wavy at a Target right here in Georgia. But luckily, some employees stepped up, and tonight, their act of kindness makes our moment.
My daughter's my miracle baby. I had her at 40. She's an only child, so her stuffed animals are basically her siblings. We love to road trip. It's just something we like to do. And this is one of the first times we've ever misplaced any of Anna's stuffed animals because she has a lot. She forgot she took him in Target. She said, Mommy, where's Wavy? Not want to drive all the way to Atlanta. Oh, I'm not doing 11 hours again. She starts falling out. Where's my doggy? And I'm like, Anna, the world will not end. I said, look, I'm on the phone with Target. They say they're going to send it back to us. That young lady, she was so helpful. She found him in the toy aisle and saved him for me. Thank you, goodness. I think the general manager is the one who sent it back to Kansas City. And it finally came, and I told her, I said, look, your box. And she's like, what's in it? She opened it was Wavy. She cried, and then next thing I know, she was attached to the thing, and it didn't leave her for like a week. 800 miles all the way back to my girl, and that is all that matters to me.
So this is a full circle moment for us here, because the producer who's with us, Melissa, who's just sitting right over there, also lost a beloved stuffy here in Georgia when she was little, was across state lines when they figured it out, also got it back. Good people here in Georgia. From all of us at the National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. We'll be back from here in Georgia again tomorrow. Lots going on here. Take care.